across 12 U.S. states. An invisible crisis is quietly creeping through grocery aisles, and it's hiding in something as ordinary as bread. The FDA has flagged multiple brands for contamination, mislabeling, and even shards of metal and glass baked right into the loaves. Think about that. The food most of us trust as the safest, the simplest, may now be the most treacherous. Seniors on fixed incomes are tearing open bags of wholesome bread while unknowingly gambling with their teeth, their hearts, and their lives. How many more hidden recalls are slipping past the headlines? How many more slices will be served with side orders of toxins and lies before we call it what it is, a silent betrayal dressed up in plastic wrap? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on 6 bread brands that 12 U.S. states are now being forced to recall and destroy at all costs. Don't panic or get angry just yet, because at the end of every segment, we'll also reveal safer alternatives you can still trust to feed your family. Number 1. Lewis Bake Shop. The headlines landed like a sucker punch in July of 2025. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration ordered an urgent recall of 6 production lots of Lewis Bake Shop's artisan-style half-loaf bread across 12 states after inspectors discovered undeclared hazelnuts baked into loaves falsely labeled as plain white bread. Picture that what looks like an innocent staple on the shelf could be a loaded trap for anyone with nut allergies, especially older Americans whose immune systems are already running on fumes. Nearly 900 loaves sold at retail giants like Walmart and Kroger had quietly slipped into homes across Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas, Missouri, Alabama, and Mississippi. Each loaf carried the disarming UPC 241260181152, but inside lurked whole hazelnuts that could send a retiree to the emergency room before they could even dial 911. Hartford Bakery, the plant behind Lewis Bake Shop, blamed it on a label changeover error, which is just boardroom jargon for, "We let the nuts slip through and hoped nobody noticed." And yet, this recall isn't some isolated hiccup. It's the first crack in a wall of corporate rot. Federal logs quietly show that Hartford's plant had a habit of skipping deep sanitation cycles while ovens roasted in 95-degree heat, turning the factory into a tropical resort for bacteria. Former workers told local reporters they were ordered to scrape gray slime off equipment with putty knives and just keep the line moving, like hygiene was a luxury add-on, not a requirement. Some FDA swabs even tested positive for Aspergillus and Penicillium molds that produce liver-damaging mycotoxins. For seniors trying to stretch every grocery dollar, that means every loaf could be a microscopic landmine dressed up in wholesome packaging. And the betrayal doesn't stop in the kitchen. In a separate scandal, Lewis Brothers Bakeries, the parent company, suffered a major data breach that exposed full names and social security numbers of over 13,500 people, triggering ongoing class action lawsuits for negligence and breach of contract. Think about that. A company that can't even guard its own workers' identities is asking you to trust its food. Meanwhile, their Healthy Life and Keto lines, pushed to retirees as diabetic-friendly miracles, are laced with sugar alcohols like maltitol and erythritol ingredients. A Cleveland Clinic study tied to increased blood clotting and stroke risk in older adults. It's like marketing broken glass as cholesterol-friendly sprinkles. Even their treatment of people reveals rot beneath the crust. Union filings show older line workers who raised safety concerns were quietly fired and replaced with temps. One testified a supervisor told him, "You're too old and slow for this line," as they escorted him out like yesterday's leftovers. That's the real Lewis Bake Shop, more disposable than the plastic wrap around their loaves. For older Americans just hoping bread won't break the bank or their health, this brand has become a Trojan horse of hidden hazards. If you're looking for safer loaves, regional bakeries like Pepperidge Farm, Nature's Own, or Arnold whole grains are still widely available and carry clearer labeling because bread should nourish, not ambush. Number 2. Nature's Own. In mid-July of 2025, the warm and fuzzy illusion around Nature's Own bread cracked like a stale crust. A fresh class action lawsuit, Nelson v. Flowers Bakeries, LLC, slammed into California federal court, accusing Flowers Foods, the corporate behemoth behind Nature's Own, of straight-up lying to the public. Their packaging boasts never any artificial preservatives, colors or flavors, and no high-fructose corn syrup. Yet the suit reveals that many loaves actually contain ascorbic acid, a lab-made compound that extends shelf life, slows decay, and quietly preserves color and odor. That's not just a labeling glitch, it's like selling mothballs in a muffin and calling it nature. The plaintiff is demanding damages, refunds, and an injunction to stop the deception, arguing that millions of shoppers, especially older Americans trying desperately to avoid chemical-laced products, were tricked into paying premium prices for something they never wanted on their kitchen table. And if that were the only shadow hanging over Nature's Own, maybe they could spin it as an oversight. But the cracks run deep. In late 2021, roughly 3,000 loaves of its honey wheat bread had to be recalled across 6 U.S. states after milk-laced butter bread was mistakenly packaged in honey wheat bags, posing a deadly risk for anyone with dairy allergies. Even earlier, consumer lawsuits accused the brand of quietly slipping synthetic additives like azodicarbonamide, the so-called yoga mat chemical, into its supposedly natural bread, while plastering stalks of wheat and sunny slogans across its packaging. One court tossed the case on technicalities, but it left a lingering question. If the marketing is all about purity, why does the ingredient list read like a chemistry quiz? And while corporate lawyers scramble to explain away misunderstandings, another uglier truth is rising like bad dough. Flowers Foods has repeatedly built its bread empire on the backs of human misery. Federal labor investigators found migrant workers trapped in stifling southern bakeries, running 12-hour shifts in 100-degree heat, without air conditioning, overtime, or even water breaks. One report described supervisors locking water coolers to keep temps from wasting time hydrating. The U.S. Department of Labor fined Flowers millions, yet the same executives kept celebrating cost efficiencies in internal emails, like cartoon villains toasting over human spines. Meanwhile, older full-time delivery drivers were deliberately misclassified as independent contractors, stripped of benefits, sick leave, and retirement contributions. Many worked 70-hour weeks for barely minimum wage, and when some tried to unionize, the company hired anti-union consultants to interrogate and threaten them, tactics the National Labor Relations Board later ruled illegal. Even the bread itself can't be trusted. Multiple FDA bulletins have flagged Nature's Own for foreign material contamination metal shards from conveyor machinery lodged inside honey wheat and white wheat loaves, shipped across 7 southeastern states. Imagine retirees just trying to make a peanut butter sandwich and instead biting into a medieval booby trap. Consumer. Watchdog groups have also raised alarms that much of Nature's Own wheat is sourced from fields treated with glyphosate weed killer right before harvest, a method legal in the US, but banned or tightly restricted in Europe for cancer risk. Independent tests by EWG found glyphosate residues in Nature's Own products, turning that heart-healthy toast into a stealth threat for seniors already juggling heart disease and high blood pressure. For older Americans scraping by on fixed incomes, this betrayal cuts deep. They reached for Nature's Own believing they were buying something wholesome, maybe even nostalgic, only to learn their grocery dollars were fueling a machine that needs in wage theft, union busting, pesticide ghosts, and metal fragments. It's like finding eviction notices baked into your morning toast. If you need safer, clearer labeled alternatives, regional brands like Canyon Bakehouse, Rudy's Organic Bakery, Silver Hills Bakery, and Vermont Bread Company are widely available and still hold the line on cleaner ingredient lists. Because at the end of the day, Bread should nourish your body, not gnaw at your conscience. Number 3. Bimbo Bakeries, USA. The warm, wholesome image Bimbo Bakeries, USA tries to project just cracked like a stale crust. In June of 2024, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration issued a formal warning letter to Bimbo after surprise inspections at its Phoenix, Arizona and Topeka, Kansas plants revealed something that should terrify anyone who still trusts food labels. Inspectors found that several popular loaves, including Sara Lee Artisano Brioche, Delightful Multigrain, Artisano Golden Wheat, Artisano Smooth Multigrain, and Brownberry Whole Grains, 12 grains and seeds, listed sesame, walnuts, hazelnuts, or almonds on their ingredient panels, even though the products didn't contain those allergens at all. This might sound harmless at first, until you remember that sesame was officially declared the 9th major food allergen under the FASTER Act, meaning even trace amounts can trigger deadly anaphylaxis in sensitive individuals. Under federal law, labeling an allergen that isn't actually present isn't just sloppy, it's illegal. The FDA cited Bimbo for violating Section 403(1) of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, and gave the company about 15 business days to explain how it would stop misleading millions of shoppers who rely on labels to protect their lives. This just-in-case labeling strategy, what Bimbo calls being protective, but what the FDA calls misbranding, has consumer safety groups furious. They argue that if companies cry wolf by slapping "contains sesame" on everything, allergic shoppers eventually stop trusting labels at all. That's how tragedies happen. When someone with a sesame allergy assumes a warning is just legal fluff and takes a bite. Instead of cleaning up its production lines to control cross-contact like responsible manufacturers, Bimbo admits it recycles the same packaging across multiple plants to save time and money. It's like putting "contains arsenic" on every bottle of water just to cover your bases, and hoping nobody notices you can't run a clean factory. But this isn't just about mislabeled allergens. It's about a culture of cutting corners so deep the whole structure wobbles. Internal OSHA documents leaked to the press showed that in recent years, shards of glass from a shattered overhead light rained down into mixing vats at a Sara Lee plant. Instead of halting production, managers allegedly told workers to scoop off the top layer and keep going. Customers later found hard plastic fragments and microscopic glass specks baked straight into loaves. The official recall notice called them foreign material. But let's call it what it is: Russian roulette for your peanut butter sandwich. While shoppers unknowingly risked shredding their gums, Bimbo's workforce was being flattened financially. The company has paid out tens of millions to settle wage theft lawsuits for misclassifying full-time delivery drivers as independent contractors, dodging overtime, health insurance, and retirement contributions. Many of these drivers, men in their 50s and 60s, were grinding out 70-hour weeks only to earn less than minimum wage. Court filings exposed managers joking about these labor efficiencies in emails while workers skipped medical checkups because they couldn't afford them. Imagine stocking grocery shelves with bread at dawn while going hungry yourself. It's like being the clown at a circus who can't afford a ticket. Even the wheat feeding Bimbo's empire comes tainted. Investigations by the Environmental Working Group found glyphosate residues, the same herbicide the World Health Organization classifies as a probable carcinogen, in multiple Bimbo products, including Brownberry whole wheat. Farmers supplying Bimbo reportedly use pre-harvest desiccation, dousing fields with glyphosate to dry crops faster. It's banned or heavily restricted in Europe, yet here it's sprinkled into the American breakfast table like confetti. For seniors juggling heart meds and cancer screenings, discovering their healthy whole wheat could double as weed killer toast feels like being tricked into seasoning dinner with rat poison. And the working conditions? OSHA complaint describe collapsing ceilings, cockroach infestations, and flour dust so thick it coated lungs, like spackle. One ex-employee testified that rats chewed through raw dough pallets, and managers ordered crews to scrape off the top layer and bake the rest. That's not artisan, that's medieval. Bimbo's obsession with avoiding downtime has turned its bakeries into speed-run nightmares, where safety is optional and human life is just another expendable input. For older Americans scraping by on fixed incomes, this betrayal lands like a sucker punch to the gut. They bought Sara Lee and Brownberry thinking they were buying comfort, only to find they were feeding a machine that stuffs glass in its bread, poisons its wheat, and bleeds its workers dry. Bimbo Bakeries isn't selling bread, it's selling the illusion of safety, one splinter at a time, betting you won't choke before the next loaf hits the shelf. If you want safer alternatives, look to brands like Angelic Bakehouse, Alvarado Street Bakery, or King's Hawaiian companies that at least haven't been caught turning your breakfast into a minefield. Number 4. Wonderbread. In November of 2024, alarms rang across Canadian grocery aisles when the Canadian Food Inspection Agency issued a sweeping Class 2 recall of Wonder brand breads and buns, Wonder White Bread, Wonder 100% whole wheat, Wonder White hamburger buns, Wonder White hot dog buns, and more after metal fragments were discovered baked inside. The contamination was traced, not to the bread lines themselves, but to their salt. Industrial batches of Sifto high-grade salt, used across multiple brands, including Wonder, Country Harvest, and even some Great Value loaves. While no injuries were reported, the CFIA warned that these sharp fragments could shatter teeth, slash mouths, or tear through the gut. It didn't matter that the incident technically happened in Canada. For American shoppers, especially parents and grandparents buying bread for kids, the headlines detonated like a fire alarm in the kitchen. If a single rogue shipment of salt can lace thousands of loaves with metal, what other ticking time bombs are silently passing through Wonder's supply chain unseen? And once you start pulling on that thread, the entire cheery illusion of Wonder begins to unravel. For decades, Wonder has paraded itself as the fluffy symbol of American childhood bright balloons on the bag, cloud white slices stacked like edible innocence. But what's really inside those loaves reads more like a chemistry lab inventory. Watchdog groups exposed that Wonder had used azodicarbonamide, a foaming agent better known for stiffening yoga mats and sneaker soles, until public outrage forced its removal. Industry insiders then revealed that Wonder quietly replaced it with potassium bromate, an additive the World Health Organization flags as a potential carcinogen, and that California lists under Proposition 65 as known to cause cancer. That means every nostalgic PBJ could be a microscopic gamble, a slot machine where the jackpot is chemotherapy. For older Americans already navigating heart meds and oncology bills, learning their comfort food might be laced with cancer risk feels like being sucker punched during lunch. And the deceit doesn't stop at ingredients, it seeps into the marketing like mold in a damp pantry. Wonder has faced lawsuits accusing it of stamping 100% whole grain on loaves that were mostly bleached white flour, dyed brown with caramel coloring. Consumer watchdogs called it nutritional cosplay, a bait and switch that preys on seniors trying to follow doctors' orders on heart health. It's like spray painting a rusted Buick and calling it a Tesla. Retirees living on Social Security checks, who stretch every dollar to buy what they think is wholesome fuel, are instead paying extra for starch-fluffed sugar bombs that spike blood sugar and collapse like tissue paper in their hands. Meanwhile, Wonder's parent conglomerate has quietly suffocated small-town bakeries, striking exclusivity deals with big box chains that shove mom and pop loaves off the shelves. Economists politely call it market consolidation, but in the bread aisle it feels more like corporate carpet bombing. Whole communities end up with no real choice except Wonder, no matter how synthetic or overpriced it becomes. It's the monopoly board version of bread stacked against the little guy, with older Americans footing the bill one loaf at a time. And here's the kicker. Labor rights watchdogs exposed that some of Wonder's supplier facilities had been fined for child labor violations, with underage teens allegedly working overnight shifts, cleaning industrial ovens hot enough to sear flesh on contact. The same brand that sells itself as a symbol of childhood nostalgia was accused of grinding down actual children to produce it. For older Americans who once packed Wonder slices into lunchboxes, that revelation lands like a betrayal baked in neon ink. For seniors trying to stretch fixed incomes, this truth is devastating. Wonderbread was sold as America's hug in a bag, but it's turning out to be more like a smile painted on a skull. Metal fragments, cancer-linked chemicals, nutritional lies, crushed local bakeries, and stolen childhoods all kneaded together in plastic wrap. Wonder isn't bread anymore. It's betrayal, sliced thin enough to toast. If you want safer, more honest loaves, look toward brands like Ezekiel 4-9, Silver Hills Bakery, or Vermont Bread Company breads that still treat nourishment as food, not a marketing costume. Number 5. Dave's Killer Bread. Dave's Killer Bread storms into supermarkets wrapped in rockstar rebellion, a grinning, guitar-slinging ex-con splashed across every bag, promising second chances baked right into every slice. For many older Americans who've spent decades believing in hard work and redemption, it feels almost patriotic, proof that people can rise from the wreckage. But peel off that outlaw sticker, and what's underneath isn't redemption at all, it's corporate masquerade. In January of 2025, independent lab tests from Lead Safe Mama detected both cadmium and arsenic, two heavy metals notorious for building up in the body and damaging kidneys, lungs, and even the brain in the brand's thin-sliced organic 21 whole grains and seeds bread. The FDA hasn't forced a recall yet, but that's cold comfort for seniors who've been to more funerals than weddings lately. Every slice that promised life might instead be quietly shaving years off it, like a time bomb set to slow. And the bad news keeps rolling in like stale dough. That same month, the Department of Defense yanked Dave's Killer Bread amped-up organic protein bars from military commissaries because hemp listed as the first ingredient is banned from sale in DoD facilities. While no illnesses were reported, the recall revealed something darker, a brand so obsessed with its rebel image that it can't even follow basic compliance rules. Then, in September of 2025, a federal court greenlit a class action lawsuit, Taylor v. Dave's Killer Bread, Incorporated, accusing the company of lying about protein content. The suit says their front labels scream X grams protein, but the fine print skips the legally required PDCAAS adjustment, meaning the real usable protein is far lower because wheat and oat proteins aren't fully digestible. To put it bluntly, retirees trying to protect aging muscles are paying premium prices for bread that delivers ghost protein, like lifting weights made of helium. And while Dave's markets its second chance employment program as a halo, inside the factory it's more like a trapdoor. Formerly incarcerated workers told investigators they were showcased at marketing events as living proof of redemption, while being locked into the lowest-paying jobs, denied promotions, and mocked as jailhouse loafers behind closed doors. HR emails leaked by whistleblowers showed managers labeling these employees liability risks and quietly pushing them out after a year to dodge higher benefit costs. It's redemption as performance art, like putting a rescued tag on a chained dog you never bother to feed. And as if that weren't enough betrayal baked into the crust, labor audits and worker grievances describe oven lines pushing out loaves at breakneck speeds, while employees handle 450-degree machinery without heat shields, suffering burns that blister through gloves. One worker said he fainted from heat exhaustion and woke up to a supervisor screaming to get back on the line. Even the organic grains can't wash off the grime. Environmental watchdogs have traced glyphosate residues, the controversial herbicide the World Health Organization classifies as a probable carcinogen, inside multiple Dave's products. Farmers supplying the brand allegedly use pre-harvest desiccation, spraying crops with glyphosate to dry them faster for industrial harvest, a practice banned in much of Europe. So, while retirees stretch their fixed incomes to buy what they think is clean, premium bread, they may be biting into chemical ghosts from the same substance used to kill weeds. It's like paying double for bottled mountain spring water and learning it was scooped from a puddle behind a gas station. For older Americans who wanted to believe in second chances, this revelation cuts deep. They thought they were backing redemption. Instead, they were bankrolling a slick marketing machine that plays dress up with ethics, selling heavy metals as health, ghost protein as strength, exploitation as hope. Dave's Killer Bread isn't redemption, it's theater. And the curtain is falling. If you need genuinely clean alternatives, look toward brands like Alvarado Street Bakery, 1 Degree Organic, Angelic Bakehouse, or Food for Life's Ezekiel 4. 9 breads that don't play Russian roulette with your health and don't treat people like disposable props. Number 6. Upper Crust Bakery. In April of 2025, the shiny artisan mask of Upper Crust Bakery shattered like a dropped wine glass. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced a recall of 3 of its frozen bread varieties: Ancient Grains, Hoagie Roll, Multigrain Sourdough, and Whole Grain Multigrain, after glass fragments were found glinting on top of seeded loaves. Over 818 cases had already been shipped across Pennsylvania, California, Connecticut, Maryland, Delaware, and Ohio. The contamination came from sunflower seeds laced with glass supplied to the bakery, a horrifying reminder that the weakest link in the supply chain can slice through trust as easily as it slices through teeth. The recall was officially classified as Class 2, not likely to kill, just may cause medically reversible injury, which is a little like saying a car crash is fine if you can walk away from it bleeding. No injuries were confirmed at the time, but regulators admitted that consumers might never recognize tiny shards until they found themselves at the dentist or worse, the emergency room. And here's the part no cheery press release admits. This wasn't a freak meteorite from nowhere. It was a symptom of how Upper Crust operates frozen loaves churned out in private label anonymity for big supermarket chains, pumped down production lines like mail-order furniture, not like food meant to nourish families. Whistleblowers have painted a grim picture of the Maryland plant, describing it less as a bakery and more as a flour-dusted sweatshop. Former employees told local reporters that expired loaves were often re-aged, old sell-by stickers peeled off, new ones slapped on while returned bread with visible mold was wiped down with bleach rags and fed back into the wrapping line. One worker claimed they once saw maggots writhing under the slicers and were told to spray it and keep going. Imagine thinking you've bought a wholesome loaf for your grandkids, only to find it's been resurrected from a moldy grave, like a gluten-drenched zombie. Even when the bread isn't crawling, it may be quietly burning you from the inside out. FDA inspection reports quietly posted online revealed that Upper Crust loaves had tested at nearly 3 times the acceptable limit for acrylamide, a carcinogenic compound formed when bread is baked at excessive heat. Management logs allegedly showed supervisors ordering ovens cranked hotter and faster to hit quota, charring crusts into a golden disguise, while saturating them with chemicals that slowly grind away at cells. Acrylamide has been linked to higher cancer risk in older adults, yet these loaves end up on shelves marketed as wholesome. For seniors stretching fixed incomes, that means paying extra for what could be slow-motion poison, like microwaving your retirement fund and wondering why it sparks. And the human toll behind the crust is even harder to swallow. Multiple state labor probes have accused Upper Crust of employing undocumented workers under fake Social Security numbers while skimming their paychecks and subjecting them to verbal abuse. Workers described 12-hour shifts with no breaks, padlocked bathrooms, and supervisors who threatened to call ICE if anyone complained. Several lawsuits echoed the same quote from different mouths. "They treat us like disposable gloves. When one breaks, they just grab another." It's exploitation baked into every loaf. The company even quietly settled a wrongful death lawsuit after a 58-year-old worker collapsed from heat stroke on a line running at 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Co-workers testified they were ordered to step over him and keep the line moving, and it took nearly 20 minutes for anyone to call 911. He died on the way to the hospital. The company never publicly acknowledged it. For older Americans living on Social Security checks, Already terrified that one bad grocery run could devour their monthly budget, this revelation lands like a gut punch. They aren't just buying bread, they're buying the illusion of safety, wrapped in faux French branding and built atop chemical shortcuts, broken bodies, and corporate indifference. Upper Crust Bakery isn't artisanal. It's industrial cruelty dusted in powdered sugar and sold with a fake smile. If you want real safety on your shelf, turn to brands like Canyon Bakehouse, Rudy's Organic Bakery, Silver Hills Bakery, or Vermont Bread Company bakeries that don't confuse fresh with reanimated. Before the next bite betrays you, reclaim your power, subscribe now, and expose the truth they hope you'll ignore.
Thank you for watching today's video all the way through. If you found the content helpful, don't forget to click like and subscribe to stay updated to our latest daily videos. Now feel free to check out other feature videos currently shown on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.